all of which were approved. The first was for the augmentation of an existing contract, the Kodu-Shagamu Road. The contractor has run out of quantities and needs augmentation just to finish the road. I think out of about 32 kilometers, they've completed over 20 kilometers, which has been open to traffic. So council approved a 6.972 billion augmentation for them to complete the road. That was one. The other was a memo presented on behalf of the Federal Road Maintenance Agency, FEMA, a statutory corporation under supervision of the Ministry of Works and Housing, and it was with respect to the rehabilitation of 5 roads and the construction of 1 road. So I'll just list the roads. Orugun, excuse me, Orugun, Owelubo, and associated roads in Delta State in favor of Mrs. UYK in the sum of 2.99 billion. Then the rehabilitation of Gege to Karage Road in Yobe in favor of Mrs. Mother Cat, 12.926 billion. Then the rehabilitation of Geshua to Potiskum Road in Yobe in favor of Mrs. Tinker Point, 2.986 billion. The rehabilitation and construction of Onitsha Aguleri to Adani Road in Anambra in favor of Mrs. Comac Steel and Construction, 2.499 billion. And the rehabilitation of Geshua Yusufari Road in Yobe in favor of Mrs. Saha Continental Civil Engineering Limited, 1.99 billion. And the rehabilitation of Oba Newi Okigwe Road Section 1, Oba UG, 35 kilometers in favor of Mrs. Ferrotex Construction in the sum of 2.499 billion. That was the second memorandum which was approved. The third memorandum was with respect to the augmentation of the Potiskum to Damaturu Section 4, part of the Kano-Maiduguri Highway. As you might be aware, Kano-Maiduguri is about 600 kilometers. We finished sections between Shuarin and Azare to Potiskum. They've been open to traffic. This section, Potiskum to Damaturu, is also almost completed. There's just an augmentation of 2.577 billion naira to cover escalation of costs in materials and to provide for lane marking so that the road can be fully and finally handed over. That was the third contract that was approved. The fourth and final one is the approval for the construction and rehabilitation of 11 federal roads, totaling 737.242 kilometers in the sum of 1,535,247,224 naira and 48 kobo under phase 2 of the NNPC tax credit scheme. You will recall that in January this year, I presented a memo that Council approved for NNPC to invest 1.9 trillion in our roads. In that 1.9 trillion, there were then about 44 roads that had been awarded. They were under contract. So that was done. So the balance of that 1.9 trillion, so it's not a new one. The balance of that 1.9 trillion, roads that had not then been awarded, that had to go through procurement between that January and now, which has now been completed, are these 11 that have now been approved by council under that global figure. So, and the roads involved here are Benin Saple Wari Road, Section 1, Benin to Imasabo, 28.275 kilometers in favor of Levant for 98.916 billion. Section 2 of the Benin Waris Road from Imasabo to Ibada to Elume, 38 kilometers in favor of a joint venture called Geld and Triacta in the sum of 127.648 billion. Then Section 3 of the same road, Ibada Elume to Wari, which is 23 kilometers in favor of Mrs. SKECC Nigeria Limited, 89.142 billion. Then the expansion of the Mararaba to Kefi Road, 43.65 kilometers in favor of Mrs. China Harbour for 73.955 billion. Let me just pause here to make an explanation. From Abuja to Lafia, we inherited the award of that road, dualization of the Abuja to Maraba section into 10 lanes, and then in between, from Maraba to Kefi was not part of the contract, because at the time that it was approved, that section was in very good condition. And this was about 10 years or 8 years ago, more than 8 years ago, because we are now 8 years in government. So it was approved before we came, but we completed the loan negotiations to finance it. So that negotiation didn't cover this part. That part has now deteriorated as we are completing the Kefi to Abuja and the other part. So we thought that it was in keeping with uniformity now to award this. So that's the explanation for that. The other roads that were approved today, Minazungeru-Tegina Road, in Tegina to Kontagora, Minazungeru-Tegina Kontagora, Section 2. That is the section from Tegina to Kontagora, 92.295 kilometers in favor of Gilmore Engineering, 136 billion and 33 million. Then the other road is Zaria Funtua Sokoto Road, traversing Kaduna, Katsina, Zamfara, and Sokoto states as follows in 4 sections to different contractors. This is now for the dualization. It's a single carriageway. We are now awarding contract for its dualization to make it a dual carriageway in 4 sections. So the first section, comprising Zaria Funtua to Shema, is 87.575 kilometers, awarded to Mothercard. Contract sum is 182.764 billion. The second section is from Shema through Safi to Gusau, 86 kilometers, awarded in favor of Cetraco for 195.774 billion naira. The third section is the section 3 from Gusau through to Talata Marafa Colony, and that is 93.73 kilometers, awarded in favor of Mrs. Triacta Nigeria Limited for 237 billion and 50 million naira. The fourth section and the final section of that road is from Talata Marafa Colony right to Sokoto City Flyover, which is 105.442 kilometers, awarded in favor of Mrs. CBC Global, Civil and Building Engineering Construction, in the sum of 258.678 billion naira. The other 2 roads that complete the 11 are Section 3 of the Mubi to Maiduguri Road, and this is the section from Madagali through to Limankara, Guoza, and to Bama. It is 71 kilometers, awarded to Decency Associates Limited, 67.882 billion naira, and Section 4 of the same road, and this is from Bama through Konduga to Maiduguri. This is 67.35 kilometers in the sum of 67.305 billion naira. So that's the fourth and final memo. Thank you very much. Security is not the only reason that makes it impossible to complete the Abuja-Kano highway. It is one of the reasons. So it's not correct to say it's because of security. And the security problem that escalated last year has been largely brought under control. The contractor is back on site in the section between Abuja and Kaduna. The reality is that this is a 375-kilometer highway. It was approved, I believe, in 2018. We had delays because of a request to expand it from 2 to 3 lanes, which meant the whole road had to be redesigned because there were 41 bridges on that road. So if you're expanding to 3 lanes, how do you merge them with 2-lane bridges? Somewhere in the middle, after procuring a design consultancy, we had to change back because of the enormous costs. Then the Ajaokuta-Kaduna-Kano pipeline is passing through that road, a gas pipeline project committed to by this government. Then there are resettlement issues of people who have set up markets, mosques, trading places, trailer parks within the right of way, from FCT through Niger, through to Kaduna. We're working with the state governors because these are land issues. They are state responsibilities. So it's not just a security issue. But in spite of all of that, the Kaduna to Zaria, which is 79 kilometers, and the Zaria to Kano, which is 137 kilometers, have been virtually completed. And this administration deserves commendation for that. The Chief of Staff, myself, and some senior government officials were there on Monday or Tuesday. All of that is motorable. That's progress, tremendous progress. In fact, the truth be told, the Zaria to Kano section is 137 kilometers. It's longer than Lagos to Ibadan. And it's been finished before that road. Because the traffic is not as severe as the traffic you have on Lagos-Ibadan. So management is restricted. So when this government has done something, let us just acknowledge it. And you see, government should not do things, and serious government, and Nigeria is one serious government in my view, shouldn't do things that they can only complete. As we are planning today, children are being born, businesses are setting up. We must plan for the future. And that takes me to the first question, that whether, because we haven't finished one, we should stop. We are not starting this procurement today. Don't forget that when I was briefing, I said the approval was given in January for NNPC to invest this amount. The roads that were already contracted at the time, have already started benefiting from that approval. So these are the remainder of the roads that were not yet fully contracted, and that has to go through our procurement process. They are now ready. I'm sure if you ask the people of Sokoto or the people of Warri, Saple Road, and all of it, whether we should leave it for the next administration, if you put it to a public vote, they will say no. And quite aside from that, I just thought to make a note. When this construction starts, there are 3,368 opportunities for direct employment and 8,942 opportunities for indirect employment. This includes those who will supply all the aggregates, the crushed stones, the laterite, the diesel, the asphalt, the reinforcement that will be used to build the road. it will mean that quarry owners will start operating their quarries. Members of the Road Transport Employers Association, if you tell them that we should stop, they won't be happy. There's their trucks that truck all these materials to and from site. So this is how an economy is going. But just to be sure, this is a tax credit policy, so it has nothing to do with budget or whatever. The money is there. NNPC has this money. There are estimated tax liabilities. So it is sustainable. The roads will be done, subject to all of the other challenges relating to right-of-way, people who need to be relocated, and all of that. I hope that answers. FEMA, this thing came from the supplementary appropriation. Don't forget that we passed a supplementary 2022 appropriation, and National Assembly has passed a resolution that the capital side of that 2022 be extended, I think, up to the 30th of June. So these are outstanding procurements, and some of these procurements, mind you, didn't start simply because they extended it. They had been in consideration, probably stuck at BPP. So every ministry, every department of this federal government that wants to procure anything at a certain threshold must go to BPP. So sometimes there's just a volume, and you have to wait until they do their evaluation and say you can go on. So we can only proceed when those certifications come out. Okay. Okay, so that's a good question. It was totally unmotorable. We were driving in mud. And you will recall that we built some bridges now. There's a particular place where I think a family drowned, where the bridge failed. That bridge has been restored. So it's progress, and you build a road slowly. Now, part of the problem we have is administrative. So we don't keep the money under this tax credit scheme. It's NNPC that releases the disbursement under an arrangement called a funding intervention agreement. So with existing contract, of which that project was one of them, we now have to sign a supplementary agreement. It has to go through justice, cleared, and all of that. So there are about 44 of those such roads, and we are signing those contracts one by one. If you don't do the documentation, you won't get paid. So those are part of the problems. Then there are some administrative issues that needed to be resolved. I don't know if it was reported, but last week, today is Wednesday, last week, Thursday, I think it was, we had a meeting. All the contractors impacted, all the concerns that they have about delays, payment, and all of that. And we had that meeting with the representative of the NNPC and also the FIRS, who administers and issues the certification so as to resolve them. We're having a review meeting again in about a fortnight from now to review progress that have been made, problems that have been solved, and the ones that still remain. So they're largely administrative.
And the Honorable Minister of State Education to please present the memos.
The Federal Minister of Education presented two executive memos, and the two of them were passed. First is the memo for the award of contract for the construction and furnishing of Senate building 4 suspended floors for the Federal University of Health Sciences, Orogun in Osun State, at the cost of 2,167,572,633 naira 12 kobo. The project is to be funded from an allocation from the TED fund amounting to about 3 billion approved as high impact intervention fund for institutions. The university is a specialized university with focus on health, nutrition, and medical services, with a total of 9 academic programs approved by NUC so far, comprising of microbiology, biochemistry, nutrition, dietetics, pharmacology, medical laboratory sciences, information technology, and health informatics, audiology, nursing science, medicine, and surgery. This award is intended to intervene in critical areas of deficit in infrastructure in the university. And this construction and furnishing is to help provide a sound and conducive environment capable of providing good education for our students and our teachers. The second memo was for award of contract for the purchase of 13 number ambulances with inbuilt emergency medical facilities for selected federal unity colleges by the Federal Ministry of Education at contract sum of 628,098,705 naira. The 13 is for selected federal unity schools. Earlier on in 2022, the ministry already procured 18 number similar ambulances for selected federal unity colleges and accordingly distributed. And so this one is the phase 2 of similar intervention, and the other phases will follow suit to cover all the federal unity colleges in Nigeria. Thank you.
The Council approved the full business case for a project on national fire detection and alarm system, incorporating life safety system, networking, monitoring, and dispatching at real time. And this will be in public-private partnership arrangement with OIST Life Safety System Limited. What this means is that at completion of this, subscribers, Nigerians who so desire, will subscribe to an automatic fire alarm system that if you have in your house, we raise alarm at each of the fire services stations nationwide, be it state or federal, to prompt our firemen and officers to any such emergency. It's going to be a cloud-based system, based modern technology, fully digitized, to facilitate prompt response to any distress or emergency on fire. That's all. It is at no cost to the government, but subscription will be determined at the end of the entire process. It's not yet determined. It's costing government nothing. It's in partnership with OIST Life Safety System Limited. It's a PPP arrangement. Yes, it's on subscription basis. It will be on subscription basis. It's not free to user, if that explains it to you. Users will have to subscribe for the equipment to be installed in your house and for you to benefit from it.
Good afternoon. The Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning presented a couple of memos this afternoon to the Federal Executive Council for which approvals were obtained. The first one, which is the approval for the award of contract for the procurement of one number Cessna Caravan aircraft AX208B by the Nigerian Customs. And this was in favor of Messrs. Worldwide Skypath Services Limited in conjunction with Africa Inc., the authorized distributor of Cessna aircraft in Africa. And it's in the sum of 3,447,442,710 naira, inclusive of 7.5% VAT. This is with a delivery period of 12 months. This aircraft is an addition to the current fleet in the customs service, and it is aimed towards combating smuggling and intelligence gathering for suppressing smuggling activities, and also to provide area surveillance and reconnaissance for the customs across our borders. The second memo for which approval was given is for the augmentation of contracts for the construction of the Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation head office building at Abuja and Lagos. The contracts were originally put in place in 2015 at a total cost of 46,104,563,922 naira 3 kobo. The augmentation amount is a total of 45,937,319,279 naira 44 kobo. There are 3 different projects here, and so the contractors are also 3. The first one is the head office annex project in Abuja. The contractor is Metropole Development Limited. The Lagos office project in Ikoyi, Lagos is Sagato Limited. And then the Lagos Training Center project in Lekki is to AG Ferrero and Company Limited. In terms of progress of work, the head office complex is currently at 49%. The Lagos office project is currently at 42.5%. And then the training office at 55%. Council also granted approval for the implementation of the Nigerian Customs Service Modernization project. And to a concessionaire, let me get the name. The name of the concessionaire is Bergman Security Consultants and Suppliers Limited as the project sponsor, African Finance Corporation AFC as lead financier, and Huawei Technologies Limited as the lead technical service provider. The concessionaire has furnished us with $9 million as security for the satisfactory performance of the project. They have also executed a debt facility term sheet in the sum of $300 million to finance the first phase of the project. The revenue sharing arrangement is 45% of what accrues to the Comprehensive Import Service Scheme going to the concessionaire and 55% going to the federal government. 25% of what accrues to the Nigerian Export Supervision Scheme and 75% to the federal government, as indicated in the agreement. And then the last but not the least approval was for the implementation and concessioning of the Cassava biomass bioethanol value chain project. This is a PPP project. It's a design, build, operate, and transfer. The federal government is putting in 5 billion naira one-off grant, and the concessionaire will put in 6.9 billion annually for 5 years. What is going on now is a pilot program in the eastern region of Nigeria. That's where it's starting. And thereafter, from the revolving fund, as the proceeds come in, it will go around the other regions of the country. And it's a 5 years program. Thank you very much.
Distinguished members of the press, my ministry presented 2 memoranda to the Federal Executive Council today, and the 2 were passed. The first memorandum was for the approval, to seek Council's approval for us to amend the labor laws of the country. The labor laws of the country, as presently being operated, are really obsolete laws. And the ILO had pointed that out, that we need to bring our laws to be concurrent with international labor standards and conventions and principles at work. So we had to do this. It's a long journey, started since 2001 by a previous administration. And at a point, the laws were sent to the National Assembly. The bills, were sent to the National Assembly for enactment into laws in 2007, 2008. Only one came out of the 5 bills. The 5 bills sent then was Labor Standards Bill to make for labor standard and replace the Trade Union Act 2004. The second was what we call Collective Labor Relations Bill, which will encompass a portion of the Trade Union Act, Trade Disputes Act 2004, Trade Dispute Essential Services Act, and of course the Trade Unions International Affiliations Act. So the 4 were to be now meted into one law. We also had another bill for occupational safety and health, which was supposed to replace the old Factories Act, with which Nigeria operates occupational safety and health system. We also had the 4th bill, which is called Labor Institutional Bills. All the institutions under labor relations and activities, like Industrial Arbitration Panel, which you know is there now, but is not really there as a recognized agency and entity. It answers the name panel. So this new bill wants to make it a commission. And already the structure for that is there. They're operating with a chairman, a registrar, and arbitrators who will now assume roles of commissioners. As you know, it's a quasi-court in industrial relations. In the middle of the road court between the ministry and trade dispute department and the National Industrial Court of Nigeria. So the essence was to make it now a commission. Also, the Registrar of Trade Unions, whose function is like the registrar of every other federal government institution, like registrar of MDCN, the Medical Dental Council of Nigeria, registrar of Pharmaceutical Council of Nigeria, and all that. So that registrar of trade union, RTU, were to be excised again and made autonomous so that it's a little bit independent of the ministry as an institution. Again, we have the National Labour Advisory Council, which is a body again that we set up on recommendation of ILO principles at work. We want it to be a council. So these are what the bills we're sending now want to do. We have, in doing that, the ILO provided us technical assistance, and we did what we call social dialogue and validation meeting, tripartite in nature, with the trade unions, TUC and Nigeria Labour Congress, and the Employers Association, NECA, and the rest of them all. So we agreed that this should be the final product. We looked at it again last June or July 2022, because there were some gray areas. It's difficult to all agree at one and the same time. So we did that, and the final product is what we brought here now. For Council to approve that, we transmit via the Federal Ministry of Justice, who look at it a second time, do what you call legal draftmanship or drafting on it, and we now transmit to National Assembly. At National Assembly, it will go through the hog of public hearing. We are members of the public, and all interested parties will come and listen to what we have to say about the contents. If there are areas of non-agreement, they will be looked at and then sent to Mr. President after the validation there at the National Assembly for assent. So that is the bill we are sending or we sent to Council, and that have been approved for us to continue the process so that we can align properly with international conventions and statutes on labor matters. The second memo is a memo on what we call electronic NSITF, Nigerian Social Insurance Trust Fund. The NSITF operates the old Workmen Compensation Act, which is now Employee Compensation Act 2010. It was signed into law in 2010. Therefore, what we are trying to do is to align the contributions of NSITF to make it fraud-free, to make it useless. People should be able to make the contributions on behalf of their workers with ease, even from the comfort of their office, and generate certificates. You know that the ECA makes it mandatory for all employers to insure through a token contribution of 1% of emolument of their workers to the fund called Social Trust Fund of the NICF. And that is the fund with which, if you have an accident or disease condition or death or disability in the course of work, you can make claim. It's like an insurance claim, what they call accident claim. So we now want to refine it, because there are cases of enforcement officers going to companies. They will tell the company, well, you have 1,000 workers, but you can pay for only 100. That shortcutting the organization. There are losses of revenue from that. So this ENSITF has a phase 1 and a phase 2. The phase 2 is what the council has approved today. They had earlier on approved the phase 1, which is minimal infrastructure and cloud activity. Now is for a concessionaire now to come, use his money, and do infrastructure and upgrade in the neighborhood of 15 billion. And then after that, it will take some percentage on incremental revenue that are accrued. It will make the fund to be more liquid now and be able to do our functions appropriately. So the council gave the go-ahead today and approved it, and directed ICRC, who is the person that, the body that is authorized by law to enter into such concession, to continue the process and go ahead in liaison with the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation. That's it. Thank you.
And you said Nigeria is faltering on repayment of Chinese loans, and you said DMO says this. As far as I'm aware, we are not faltering on any loan repayments. None that I'm aware of.
The first has to do with the elections in Adamawa State. I don't think this government has ever intervened in the way the independent National Electoral Commission, conducts its elections. So there was no need for us to intervene. It was entirely an INEC matter, and INEC handled it. Now, in respect of the chairman of FEC, the chairman of INEC, is in charge of all employees of INEC and is handling it. So what want the government to do?
Was the president not disappointed?
Pardon?
Was the president not disappointed by that attitude?
The president does not micromanage any institution under him.
But the INEC has already requested the appointing authority to do something about it. Do we expect action on that?
I think you should go and ask INEC. INEC handles all these businesses.
I think they have forwarded that action to the presidency, and so expectations are that the president will react accordingly.
Why don't you? Honestly, if I were you, I would ask INEC that question. If I,
This is the appropriate process.
no, you said INEC, Gloria.
What they said is that
Gloria, you said INEC took certain disciplinary actions. Okay, INEC took certain steps, right? It's within the competence of INEC to so do.
they said they will do so.
If I were you, I would go and I'm not aware, as Minister of Information and Culture, that there's a petition to Mr. President. It was not addressed to me. Otherwise, I said your best bet is probably to ask INEC. And, you see, the President does not micromanage every organization within it. And if the President needs to take action, he will so do. But I think I'm the wrong person you're asking this question. Now, as to the first question about what I went to do in the U.S., yes, I went to the U.S. to balance the skewed reports about the just concluded elections. And everywhere I went, I said it very unambiguously that the last general elections in Nigeria are the most transparent, the freest, and the most authentic as ever held. And that is despite the efforts of the opposition to delegitimize or discredit the election. And I put forward my position there that the three reasons why these elections were free were the best was one, that the introduction of technology, especially beavers, made it pretty difficult for anybody to do the usual things before, which was overvoting, stuffing ballots, and the like. Because once it takes your, biometrics, you can vote twice. Secondly, I said it's because the president also showed that, and he promised that he would provide a level playing ground, which he did. The first instance, Mr. President did not confer any advantage on his ruling party. And that is why, as far as was concerned, he would rather lose the election than win at all costs. And the results showed it. The president lost presidential election in his own state, in Katsina. It's never happened in Nigeria before, for the sitting president to lose elections in his own state. And I went further to say that the president also prevented anybody from using the security to rig elections. Of course, again, the last election is largely the least violent in the history of Nigeria. Yes, what I said about Mr. Peter Obi is very clear. I said Mr. Peter Obi has every right to seek redress in court, like Labour Party, but nobody has a right to call for insurrection or to threaten to say that if the president-elect is sworn in, that will be the end of democracy. And that was precisely what the running mate of Mr. Peter Obi said on live channel television. And I've not heard Peter Obi rein him in or correct him. So if your running mate says something, of course he was saying on behalf of the party and on behalf of the candidate. That's why I said that was treason. For anybody to say that if a duly elected president in Nigeria is sworn in, that will be the end of democracy. It's treason. For anybody to say if you swear in a duly elected president, you are swearing the military. It's treason. So I don't see anything that's controversial in that. Thank you very much. This has nothing to do with the question that I'm answering. If you have any issue with REC, please go to INEC. Thank you. You see, do you now want me to second guess the president? No. Am I supposed to second guess the president? INEC chair wrote a letter to the president, presumably through the secretary of the government. There are procedures. So what's your problem? Thank you.